Welcome back to the show where we talk to the big stars, and it's nice to see an old friend. It's been 3 years since I last saw Dara Briain.
My God, is it that long?
And there's nothing left of you. Where have you all gone?
You know what the secret of losing weight is? You'd be miserable for months. That is the secret that no one tells you. You just have to suffer for a while. I ate less and exercise more.
But I mean, you did 300 dates on tour last year, something like that.
That's not where you lose weight. Trust me, that is chips and beer. There's no way of doing that as part of a calorie control diet. You know, it just feels too virtuous because what you do is, towards the end we had to do it because I was on this regime, and we had to go to Marks and Spencer's and buy those packets of vegetables that you microwave, and I'd sit in the crew room in a theatre in Swansea, I remember once in Skegness, just eating this broccoli out of a plastic bag, and it was horrendous.
It really is amazing how depressing being on tour is. There's no glamour at all, is there?
There isn't glamour. It's not depressing because the actual job itself is fun, right? And it's more fun than Mock the Week. It's more fun than just about anything else. But there is a large amount of schlepping around. It's less depressing because I now have a guy with me and we drive around and we get on very well, so it's a bit of crack with that. It splits the tour. Ahmed, I know, goes around with 4 people, and I'm not paying for that. I don't value company that highly, but because you crisscross with each other and occasionally you meet up with each other at the same town at the same time, kind of stuff, and that's kind of weird. It's like gunfighters meeting in different parts of the Wild West. That's a very self kind of aggrandizing, very flattering term for it, like fat comics meeting in different parts of the world. But there is much can be made of how lonely it is out on the road, and loads of people commute. They don't go on about it. Oh, it's lonely driving into work in the morning. There are things that comedians end up, that training means you're quite good at, right? And being like a chat show host, for example, is a natural place to go. Being a travel writer is that, because this is essentially what we do anyway, which is always why it amazes people. Go, why are all these comedians? Because that's what we do. We talk about travel all the time. But doing other people's words, that's just unnatural for us. And not spotting, I can make that better. No matter how often this show has been done, I could make that funnier, right? I don't care if this is in the smash hit on Broadway. I don't care if this traces back to the 50s and Lionel Bart. I've got a little twist on that that'll make that even funnier. And yeah, essentially it's like writing "I was here" in marker on the foot of the Venus de Milo. Just, do you know what she needs? She needs a tiny grace note, a tiny little addition here. That'll be mine. So,
at what point, though, like the artist, when you keep painting, it becomes rubbish again? Do you need to just stop and leave your material alone?
There is a touch of, when you're doing it live, it becomes like a stone in the river. Water smooths it and sweeps across it and shapes it. You stop. Most of the tweaks and are fairly instinctive and fairly natural, and they come along because you panic as well as the other way you write, because you go, whoa, that wasn't funny enough, quick, put something funny in there, right? And so that's kind of how they do. You can obviously twist around too much, but usually it finds its form, it finds its shape, and trust me, you go back quickly as well if you try it in the wrong order. There's times I've done Edinburgh runs where 2 weeks in I've gone, this isn't working, and basically inverted the show. Put the first half second half first, change the whole thing around, and the next night, oh yeah, that's grand. There is a kind of a little invisible balance there that works, and you have to find it.
I'm always amazed by your supreme confidence when you come on stage, because unlike some comedians who have the occasional song to fill or a nice set to distract or characters to put in, I mean, it really is just you and a suit and a microphone.
The suit, by the way, for people, is on me. It's not that the suit is just hung up like slowly over the course. That'd be artifice if I came out just in suspenders, like there's like a gentleman from the 20s and a thong. It is, you're right. It's just me and a mic. But there's also just the years of knowing that, right, I'm going to own this room. That's what I'm about. I'm here to own this room. That's my job. And I'm going to come out there and I look at an audience. And I don't know if other comics do this. And I have a thing that I don't see them necessarily as a collection of individuals when you just see them as a block, as a crowd. Because a crowd is a different animal to a collection of individuals. Much like a mob is a different collection. But a crowd is a more benign form of
a rabble.
Yes, yeah. Well, I try to keep them on the crowd side. But they do react as one, and you basically engage them as one. Then obviously you start chatting to individual members, and that sometimes bonds them even more as well, and they all have a laugh together at stuff, and it's grand. Because I'm hopefully quite generous in terms of give them the laugh. If they get a funny line, I'm not trying to be rude to people and nail them in that kind of hackneyed, corny, hey, look at you. I don't do that. But they are a resource to get stuff out of, and you want to put them at their ease. But ultimately, it's your room, and they have come out to see you, and you want them to sink into their chairs knowing, fine, This is the guy who's going to do this. That's fine. It's grand. And they can relax. And there is an Emperor's New Clothes element to it. As you get better at doing it for long, that becomes less evident. But there's always, particularly when you're starting off a day, somebody will stand up and go, no, this actually isn't funny. And it would be the worst heckle in the world. It was to go, I'd just like to point out, have we not noticed, this isn't actually funny? And it's very difficult to come back. Wow, I'm nothing now. Now that you pointed that out.
Next, I talked to Dara about the business of comedy, which has just gone through the roof in the last few years, with comedians now filling 9 to 20,000 seater arenas. And the big one this year has been Michael McIntyre. He's also got the #1 DVD for 2008-2009. And I asked him how he felt about his massive success.
At this time last year, he had just done Mock the Week as a guest. And there's no chance we're getting him back as a guest now. And then went and sold an insane number of tickets. Some acts just get the nation's ear. And he was always a very people have tendency to be pejorative about successful acts, and I wouldn't be, but he always had that crossover appeal, that what he talked about was the everyday stuff, and you could see that people would love that. And if people, we all have this idea in our head that I'm very funny, and if only people knew that, I would be huge. And that works for someone, it doesn't work for others. Peter Kay, for example, again, touching that everyman thing. This is what we all know, and well done to him. He does it very, very well, and he rings a subject, which all comedians really admire. Someone who really picks up a subject and squeezes it and gets stuff out that you go, oh well, yeah, that's very, oh yeah, no, I see what you've done there, right? And we like that. So it's impressive, and he deserves it.
Is it worrying though that, like Peter, he may get this tour out of it and then sell the same thing on DVD 2 or 3 times and then run out of a show?
I'd like to think not. I think he's been doing it. Peter came to success incredibly quickly. Michael has been around a bit longer than that. Michael is more the traditional case of an act who was gigging, and suddenly it was an overnight success. And like Jimmy Carr was, for example, where there's years of work there before, and then suddenly it's like he's come from nowhere. So I think, he was always quite prodigious as a joke writer, and will continue to do so.
Does it bother you in a way that 2 years ago he was sat on your quiz doing your show, and now he's filling venues bigger than you can?
No, I mean, I would love the cash that comes with that. But frankly, they're not gigs I'd particularly want to do, because you can't talk to the audience during those gigs, so that makes them slightly less. I think the level of stress, it suits a very gag-rich, bulletproof in the sense of like this is going to work no matter where I do it kind of style that he has, whereas I like to create in this room tonight a thing will happen, and I don't know what the thing is going to be. There's a show, but as well as that, we're going to make something unique in this room. And this sounds kind of weird and it's hard to explain. It's a bit like getting a juggler on a game to talk about juggling without juggling. It's kind of, but it kind of wouldn't work in the sort of rooms he's in. Not that, this is like I haven't been turning down arenas for this. But the level of for what I do, the level I'm at is just fine. I think gambling 5 very enjoyable nights in a 2,000 seater venue to play one high risk night in a 10,000 seater venue. I like doing the 5 nights.
I've said to you before that the thing that makes you unique is the speed in which you deliver, right, and the accuracy in which you do that. Because I think if I spoke as quickly as you did, it would all go wrong. How fast is your brain working to enable you to do that?
It's kind of coming out. Listen, I'll try to answer that in a way that doesn't seem like I'm just accepting that compliment. Well, let us discuss my amazing brain. I'm just firing out everything that pops into my head, and it comes out in a torrent and it tumbles over itself. And one of the ideas is that, or one of the ways it works is that you're not really getting everything, but you're getting the fragments of this, and you're seeing that, and oh my God, and it's keeping you constantly off balance, because you can see me jumping from rock to rock to rock, and you're trying to keep up with it, and it should always just have you slightly discombobulated, and that's kind of the way it works. That's if you get a head of steam. If I'm hammered, or I've been hungover, or I've been up early with the child, sometimes this doesn't work as well as it should. But it's a great weapon to have in your armory, just a kind of a ranting, words falling out stream of stuff like that. But no, you're not seeing. I mean, there are times when I have turned to my brain and gone, "Here we go, brain. Here we go." I'm shaking my hands in anticipation for the amazing stuff that is. Oh, you're firing fireman put out any fires recently? That's all you give me? That's all you give me, brain? Sometimes, yeah, you do. You know, there is a plan. There are a couple of secret plan C's and B's to wake myself up.
Well, next I asked him about when he's doing the live gigs and he chooses to pick on someone. Does he ever have to just walk away because they're too boring?
You can never walk away. There's a minimum number of laughs you have to get off a punter. If you walk away, I remember seeing once a stand-up in Edinburgh turn to somebody and go, oh, there's nothing funny there, and it was the third time in a row he'd done it, and by the third time the crowd are going, don't try it again, you can't, no, what are you doing, stuff, and each of them going, oh, that's not funny, and they were actually quite good, as I think there was something in them, you know, if you went for it, even if there isn't, there's something in that. Even if it's a dull job, there's something you can do with that. So there's always something funny you can make out of something. There's a minimum number of laughs you want to get off them. And then you can leave. But until then, back to the coalface and keep digging. I mean, there's a story in the book about a guy in Bridlington who was quite quiet, and I said, what do you do? I said, I'm an engineer. Okay, and and that doesn't ever really electrify a crowd. And I said, any particular kind? I said, aeronautical. So, you know, a couple of guff about that, but it wasn't really going, and I kept asking, and I said, for whom? He said, for Rolls-Royce. And I went, and there was like a bing moment. I said, you work for the Rolls-Royce in Derby? And he said, yeah. I said, is that the factory where they have a gun that fires chickens through the engines? And he went, yes, it is. And then we're going, it's gold. From there on in, it's where do you buy the chickens? What do you do with the chicken when they've gone through the thing? Or they go for stewing? What do you do when the chicken survives? It was just hundreds of questions. And the one's really getting into this really weird job that the guy knew. And I once just said to him, what's on the door outside the room with the chicken can? What's it called, this room? And he goes, what do you mean what's it called? I said, well, what's written on the sign outside the door? And he went, keep out. And he was just brilliant. He had a very dry, funny answer for every question. And it basically, I ended up dropping later routines just to do more with the chicken cannon guy. And so, but that was 6 or 7 questions down. I mean, and I was scrabbling. It was my fingernails were in there just scooping sand up, trying to find, there's got to be some treasure here somewhere. And then gold appeared.
But what if they're just the guys on X Factor that really don't have any talent and keep going for auditions? I mean, there's got to be people who are so dull it's not worth continuing with.
Do you know, it hasn't happened that often. But there's been, you know, weirdly enough, the toughest ones are when it's a job that the audience don't have a particular resonance to. When it's, I am a database informatics manager. So and that is, because you can see the audience going, huh? And you're going, well, I'm not going to be able to make it about this. But like in everyone's human life, there is a thing. There is something that they are animated by, will talk about, or they'll suggest a thing. It's worse if somebody tries to be funny. That is by far a worse thing. If you say to somebody, what do you do? And they go, not much. That's impossible to work with.
It's just made me laugh.
Yeah, but it's my impersonation of it. It's my delivery of it. They don't deliver like that. Years of training got me that timing. But, you know, if they go for the funny answer or try to be or try to do what they think they want me to do, which is be funny, I'm not. I'm just looking for facts. And I'm not being complacent. I just it's kind of weird for the audience if you do that. It doesn't really work. Just give me something, and that's more difficult than a boring job.
Because you tend to avoid the "did you have your hair done by the council" gags, don't you?
Yeah. Did you get that jumper for Christmas? All that kind of stuff. I don't go to your workplace, etc., etc., etc. Yeah.
All right, look, we've been talking for nearly half an hour or 40 minutes, and I haven't asked you a question yet. Should we start the interview now? Because I think it's best.
We can record it now. Because
I made all these notes and I've not used any of them.
Really?
Yet.
Was there stuff you wanted to get to?
Well, just a few things I noticed about you, that you're actually quite bright, which was surprising. I mean, really, comedy is not for you. You're much more intelligent than that.
I had a guy come up to me at a gig and go, why are you doing this? As if, you know, I am a loss to science or something, that, you know, I should be somewhere in a lab doing, this is a circus, this is fun, this is where, you know, there is, you know, one of the joys of doing this, and I always wanted to choose a job that I'd be surrounded by interesting people, and this, I get to talk to Fry or David Mitchell, or these are smart people to be around, and so you have to be on top of your game. So it's flattering to think that. Also, trust me, you have a degree at one stage in your life, which was okay. You get a lot of credit for it for a lot longer. I can't remember any of the science I did in college, but for some reason it gets mentioned a lot, as if I secretly could be off, you know, rewriting Einstein's equations or something. And it's nonsense at the highest order.
Because theoretical physics is quite dull.
Oh Lord, no, it's not dull. It's fine, beautiful. It is the queen of sciences. It is the purest expression of human thought. It is one of our great castles of the mind.
But as interesting as that is to you, it must be still humbling when you're sat opposite Stephen Fry and you still know he's way smarter than you without a degree.
Yeah, but does he know the laws of integration? Probably. That would depress me if I'd spent 4 years learning the Schwarzschild equations, the Schwarzschild solution of Einstein's field equations, which I can't remember now, but I did once know them.
Sounds very Jewish.
Well, actually, a lot of Jewish scientists, a lot of great physicists, a lot of great Austrians, of course. And also pre-war, before the diaspora. But the only one of the great quotes from Einstein is that if relativity is right, the Austrians will call me an Austrian, the Germans will call me a German, and the Americans will call me an American. If relativity is wrong, the Germans will call me an Austrian, the Austrians will call me a German, and the Germans will call me a Jew. That is an interesting historical quote from Einstein himself, who was a good man for the quotes. But if I'd spent years learning all this, then found out that Fry could just do it off the cuff, that would be enormously irritating.
Next, I asked him about Mock the Week, the show that's really shot him into mega stardom in terms of comedy. And I struggle watching the programme because I found it so uncomfortable because everybody's trying to get their gags in quicker than the next comedian. And I asked him, did he feel the same, that it's just incredibly competitive?
It's a direction the show has gone in. Not necessarily the direction that I would bring the show in myself, but the direction they've gone in to be that show, which is punch, 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 punch.
Because it's unique to quiz shows, isn't it? Really?
It is, yeah. It's also unique to have 7 comics, which doesn't reduce the level of competitiveness now. Because normally there's some celebrity or journalist or politician on these shows, and you can imagine who the examples are of that, right? Okay, and they're very flattered to be there, and they are there as a sorbet, essentially, between the comedians doing the stuff. It's our job to do the funnies, their job to supply some interesting thing, and then we'll be funny about it. But we don't have that buffer. It's just comics, so it makes it kind of an intense show. Frank is doing the show from here on in, so it may take a different shape and a different form. It may breathe a bit more. It may suddenly be less combative anyway, because Frankie came in tooled up, which is why he ended up being all over the edit all the time, because he was the king of banging out the gags.
And he normally hits. I mean, that's the problem. He's normally funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's all good stuff. But I think you'll find maybe it'll become more conversational, or maybe it will just exhale a bit now, because it might be slightly less competitive. Who knows? I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next series.
The thing we talked about big time last year was the Russell Brand stuff and the Jonathan Ross thing had just happened. Yeah. And we talked in detail about that. And what's interesting is Frankie, who seems to be fighting this battle for taste and decency, because let's face it, he is shocking, because he's a guy who doesn't seem to realise how shocking he is, even to someone like me who's used to hearing shocking things. And I know he's got podcasts out with stuff that doesn't make the edit, whether it be in newspaper columns or TV shows, and he's walking away from a lot. When you sit there with him, are there times when you want to say, actually, it was funny up to the point, and then you went too far? How do you feel he sits?
Occasionally, and occasionally there are times you go, right, this isn't going to go in, and you're saying it for your own pleasure. It's fine. I think, and I've said this more generally, our job within that room is to do whatever we do within that room, and then there's somebody else whose job it is to rule on that. Because if you start inputting in your own head, I mean, my stuff wouldn't be anywhere close to being as unbroadcastable as Frankie's is. And when he's unbroadcastable, he genuinely is very unbroadcastable. But somebody else can do the calling on that, and that sounds like a derogation of duty in some ways. But it just works better creatively if you let whatever is going to come out. And there are times when I go, we all know what's not going to go in. The really extreme, you're going to go, wow, that's just, that's to your own benefit. It's almost really interesting that we do stuff, and the producer screaming at me is going, could you please, none of this is going in. And you're going, I know you're not going to. But you've got to let everyone just go off the leash in that room. And then, because that in the room is just a live gig in front of 400 people who've consented to come in and watch it, which is very different to it being broadcast, where people believe they haven't necessarily consented by not switching over. It's been imposed on them, and so they feel a different sense towards the show. So the people are aware of that, but other people should have that headache, and we should just do whatever we think is going to be funny in the room.
About 130 shows, and it was interesting, when he stopped touring, the credit crunch started.
Interestingly, you're absolutely right. When I started the tour, you were in a boom, and by the end of the tour, the recession had begun to bite. And in fact, there's even one, because over the course of the book, I mention I'm in Manchester, and Manchester there was, and I list very quickly those who were at the gig in Nottingham, dot, and then I have a long story about the show, or I have more likely an essay about the city or the town or the people, or some general essay about the English, right? But tellingly, just towards the end, I think it was like the second last gig, Tunbridge Wells, one unemployed stockbroker. And I said there was the first time on the thing where I said, hey, what do you do for a living? That you suddenly noticed this is, and in the room, you know, I think the line I said was, in Tunbridge Wells, that's like their pit closures. Having an unemployed stockbroker in the room was genuinely, you could see them all going, this is a difficult time. So it did change. It didn't come through a huge amount in it, other than that, because it was. But look, the book doesn't read like a pay into a happier time, whatever. It wasn't. Oh, the boom! They were the great days, whatever. But it was interesting. It was the first time we just sneaked in there at the end.
So if you were doing this 100-date tour this year, do you think you'd have to be more careful?
I'm doing almost exactly that run again. Although I won't try to get yet another book about it. Like for the, will I be more careful? It'll come up as a theme on the show. I'll not be casual about consumption in the sense that I certainly, you know, I think you'd be sensitive to the fact that people are suffering at different levels in this, while at the same time going, I have a routine about, you know, we had got to a ridiculous level, you know, in terms of, you know, I think the line I have in the thing with 5 blades in our razors. I mean, if ever there's a horseman of a financial apocalypse, it's the 5-bladed razor, you know, and we were just coming up with products to sell ourselves. I mean, paying to vote on a television show so that somebody else can get $1 million record contract. That's got to be wrong on some level. I mean, I don't remember having the pocket money to do that, or my father going, "What? I'm going to spend money so that this woman we don't know gets a recording deal." What? How? What? I work for that money. So that kind of stuff was, you know. But I think the air may have had to be taken out. I mean, obviously that's a very pat reading of a financial crisis. But some of the stuff would change. Obviously, the jokes will change, but the tone, you know, you kind of, you know. They're interesting times we live in, though, you know. So, do you still get bigger laughs in some parts of the country than others? Yeah, there is still an element with that. Certain ends of the country are bigger laughers than others. The north is bigger than the south. Just generally, cities are bigger than not cities. A lot of it's tied into how well people become crowds, and a lot of it's tied into how much identity the area has. So, smaller places like Liverpool or Glasgow or Manchester have a really strong sense of themselves. And I have a very pat theory, which is, if you have a local football team that's very well known, then you're used to hearing your town's name being mentioned a lot, and you're used to being from the town and it being represented, and by extension then you represent. So when I ask you a question, on some level you are aware you're speaking on behalf of Glasgow or you're speaking on behalf of Birmingham, and it just raises everyone up a bit. By contrast then, if you go to Chichester or go to a satellite town or a dormitory town where people have come in from outside the town and don't really feel like, I'm such a St Albans man, I'm a St Albans man till I die, that makes a difference. That means that people are a little less bonded, in a little less communal, and also, as we said, a little better off maybe, so therefore a little less curious, a little more content, and all of which makes it a slightly less engaging gig at times. So there is still that. And weird enough, I asked a venerable old comedian who features throughout the book, I said to him, so where do you like playing? And the north. I said this 83-year-old comedy legend to me without a second's pause. So it is just these things, and that's not pandering to the north in any way, but it's very chatty, which isn't to say about I having a great gigs down the south, but there is just broadly across the thing, you just get a more kind of friendly level of chat or something, or possibly they're just more unified. I know you're a big star now, and you got the TV show, and obviously you're surrounded by showbiz types a lot of the time. Constantly, and you haven't referred to my entourage at any stage. Exactly, and I appreciate them coming in with you. Yes. Let's get them food while we continue talking. They're champagne. Okay. But is it still a thrill when you go to a theatre and people have put their hand in their pocket to pay to see you? Because when we're watching you on TV, I know we got a TV licence, but there's no real investment, is there? No. I know what you mean. I mean, obviously for no real investment, I'm still doing okay at it. I'm not sure where that money is magiking itself out of. But no, there is a thing. I have a thing which I sometimes do, and then realise that this is a road to madness, where I'll stand behind the curtain as people are coming in, and just there's always a hole. All those black curtains you see in the back theatres, there's always tiny little holes in them, and if you look through them, you can see people gathering there, and you go, right, these people have all booked tickets online, dragged some friends, particularly when I was only just starting off, and there'd be 4 people, one of whom knew who you were and had brought the other 3 along, and that's pressure. Where this could be, well, it was Mick's turn to pick somewhere this time, and he brought us to a terrible show, so we're not trusting him again. And it would be something that would slag them off forever, or it was a birthday present, or and so you're aware of that as being, I've got to be good for this. And these are people's night out. People have booked babysitters or bragged to their friends or gone online or done something in order to they've come out. So it's worth having it just to scare yourself. There's nothing wrong with being a bit frightened. And I am not so, for how these phrase, ambitious self-starter? Yeah, I am not that, right? I need the external influence of the fear of death and 2,000 staring eyes looking disappointed at me and going, where are the exits?
Next, I asked him about the feeling when you're just not funny and the audience aren't laughing. Does that either depress him or inspire him to be funnier?
Yeah, you do that. You are aware, because it changes all the time, and you're also allowed to edit and comment on your own stuff. You're allowed to offer a DVD. So if a gag doesn't work as well as it should have, because I'm midway through a tour, that worked every night. Why not here? And you do get that kind of thing. Come along here with your not laughing at my great story type thing. So it becomes like a thing. The one you can't get mired in your own in-jokes about, you should have seen how well that worked in Leeds, or because they weren't there. So but it is one of the things that you get very used to it and very familiar with. And in my own head I'm kind of going, I'll be honest, there are times where I'm going, oh God, I've got to do this bit again, and especially by the end of the tour you have your favourites and you have stuff that you loathe, and some stuff, interestingly, some jokes work every time and will work forever. Some jokes worked a couple of times because the nervous energy of delivering them ran out, and then you realize actually there's nothing really funny there. I got away with it the first couple of times. The first time you deliver it, often you'll sell it so much it'll be work, and then it won't work, right? But between those two extremes, there are jokes that work 50 times and then stop working. And it's the bizarrest thing that you midway through the tour you'll just forget, it'll change, or you'll forget what it was, and suddenly a thing that was one of your favourite bits isn't getting it anymore.
So that's you then?
Yeah, and that is just how you're delivering, because then suddenly, for whatever, there's been a couple of different things that I've had, routines I've had, that suddenly 90 dates in, and then for the next 10 dates you're kind of going, well, that's dragging the show down now. And why was that? And you go, didn't that used to work? I've gone back and looked at the DVD recording, which is done about 2/3 of the way through a tour, going, what? It works there. Why is it no longer working? Stuff just doesn't work. It's really strange the way that is. Stuff just has an expiry date. It just goes off midway through the tour, and you've got to dump it. And new stuff appears. So the shows get longer rather than shorter. But it is just weird that it may be just that you've done a thing a million times that you actually forget you've moved away from the original idea, and then you move a bit too far, and that invisible bond is broken, and suddenly people are going, what's he talking about now? And the whole thing dies.
This year seems to have been Michael McIntyre's year with a #1 DVD and the Sellout Arena tour. And I asked him, was 2002 his year?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it didn't lead to it. Was still a couple of years from doing the first tour. But 2002 was, I went to Montreal. I actually, at the start of 2002, I almost ditched it because I did a horrendous tour in Ireland, which I played to 30 people each night, and it was on the way it worked out financially is that I had to fix fee to my support act, and I got the creamed off the rest. And with 30 people, it meant that he would get €200 a night and I would get 40. And I literally went from town to town, and I would arrive in places and go, why are there 30 people here? And they go, well, it's a fashion show tonight. It's a big night in Listowel, the fashion show's on. And it was hilariously bad. I wrote off a car. I fell in love 4 times and to women who all went, no, you're never going to be back here again. And I was like, no. And it was just, and I ended up running back to London. And it was significant because I ran back to London, was almost jacking it in, and then got one good review for a thing. I did a Montreal tryout, got that. Did Montreal and went exceptionally well, and I got this huge jump start of confidence. And yes, that led to a great Edinburgh, which begat. It's when one of those years happens, I still feel I'm in the wake of that year. To a huge extent. Genuinely feel I'm still milking that energy.
What's great about you don't seem to be desperate with the merchandising. I mean, there's no Dara, Briain dolls out, are there?
No, there aren't. But you learn quickly that you're the kind of crowd who won't buy Dara Briain dolls. Lee Evans has Cagoule.
All right, look, I didn't get to talk about children's TV. We'll have to do it next time. Just a minute, I want to talk to you about QI and 3 Men in a Boat. Any more of those?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah, sorry, yeah. In October, we went to Ireland and went from one side of the country to the other. We schlepped from Dublin across Ireland, a route never before taken, and I'm from Ireland, never before taken, to the Atlantic.
You see what I love about that show? It's completely the opposite to Mock the Week. It's three guys in a boat not trying to be funny who are funny.
Yeah. It's a very benign show. It's a very gentle, and this one will be very like the first in the one sense of this is a trip you could do, which I think a lot of people, because they stick it on in January, and I think a lot of people watch it when they're in the mood for something new and a new journey, some sort of adventure in the new year, and then we come on doing this ridiculous thing, and they go, well, we could do that. And the amount we go, then we went and we did a boat trip because we saw you, and essentially you lot got away with it with your nonsense, and then we did. It's just, it's a joy to do because they're really nice guys. We get on very, very well, and it's the same team we've done it for the last few years, and it's just a really pleasurable, few days out doing stuff like. So that'll be on at Christmas, New Year's.
There must be, sorry, say New Year's again.
That'll be on at New Year's.
There must be personal moments in those boats as well, because there's not much room, is there?
Yeah, well, we don't get, there's even less than you think because there's obviously a cameraman and a director. So, you kind of get over it. Probably the most telling one was in the last one where we had a gamble to see who would throw up first on the big boat. And we were all queasy until the soundman came in and said, I did it. And then we all really amazingly relaxed. Like it was on a really, and it was a beautiful day the next day in the Scilly Isles, and tenors were being handed over, and they're a fun team to be with.
Who'd have thought we'd got no time to talk about you being an Arsenal fan, an atheist and a Catholic?
My God, I could have gone on for hours on any of those three topics.
Let's talk about the new book then. It's in the stores now. It's called Tickling the English. It's a great read. You're so funny whether you're just doing this, whether you're doing shtick or whether you're actually writing a book, and you can hear you doing it, which is the best compliment you can pay an author, isn't it?
That's fantastic if I've managed to pull that off. Pulling off a level of readability is weirdly enough it came more about the rhythm of the words rather than the vocabulary. It's interesting. I could get nerdy about just about writing. It was a really interesting thing because you don't stand up, you don't write stuff down, so writing it down was weird. So if I pull that off, thank you very much.
Dara, your entourage of 30 people are banging at the door to get rid of you. You were meant to leave about 35 minutes ago.
We got a stretch limo,
the 5 stars at the hotel and all that, and the busty babes are all waiting for you. Dara, Briain, thanks very much for talking to me again.